The truth is out there, and you can find it by subscribing to my channel. My name is Zachary Conan. This is Craig, and today we are covering episodes 4, 5, and 6 of the second season of The X-Files. Episodes called Sleepless, Duane Barry, and Ascension. These are some pretty significant episodes in X-Files lore and mythology. Not only do we first meet X here, Mulder's new informant, new voice in the shadows, but I think a lot more significantly, this is the beginnings of Alex Krycek as a villain, as as a wolf throughout the entire series of the X-Files original run. And Alex Krycek is one of my favorite villains. I think they use him extremely well whenever they do. He's a less is more kind of character, and it's wonderful seeing his beginnings here as as kind of a dopey-eyed, kind of Jimmy Olsen, almost admirer, or pretending to be an admirer of Fox Mulder as a replacement for Dana Scully. And I also think it's smart because actress Gillian Anderson was pregnant during this time. They had to figure out a way to write her out for a little while. And not only do I think that the inclusion of Krycek to kind of give her a break from any kind of truly physical acting, they even incorporated her actually pregnant belly into the abduction sequence or scenario as well. So they found a lot of creative ways to use her pregnancy to the benefit of the narrative. And I think that the best benefit out of it was Alex Krycek, played by Nicholas Lea, who famously signed up for 3 episodes of this show and stuck around for 8 years until season 9. So, and he's one of my favorite villains of all time, mostly because of the dynamic that he establishes with Mulder, which I do argue is highly homoerotic, only on Krycek's part, because Mulder is such an Aquarian and so airy that he just does not care about Krycek at all. He didn't care about Krycek being pretending to be such a big fan of him in the Sleepless episode. He was just completely uninvolved with that, completely preoccupied with the actual case they were working on. And even more interestingly, this is Craig has seen bits and pieces of the X-Files, and it's such a part of our cultural zeitgeist and just a part of our culture that he definitely knows the dynamics of the show and what it's about. But these were the first full episodes that he watched, which I think was good. It's only the beginning of season 2, so it's not needlessly convoluted yet, which it will get eventually. But what did you think of these episodes?
I thought it was really interesting. There's a lot of... It's definitely interesting enough to watch just a single episode, but I like how they were able to keep both a narrative going between the episodes, and you can also get a hint of a sub-narrative building.
Yeah.
Even if some of that stuff wasn't really put forward in any of these episodes. Like I was saying, throughout all the episodes, there was always something about information being covered up, someone being taken out, so that, I think it was in the first episode, they took out the last guy before they were able to ask him any questions.
Oh, yeah, Krycek took him out.
Yep, Krycek took him out. And at the time, you kind of just think that he takes him out because he thinks he has a gun, which was really well done because you don't... I didn't even think about it until we watched the 3rd episode, and I was like, okay, maybe he was actually taking him out.
He would have taken him out anyway.
Yeah, and then of course they kill.
And he definitely stole the manila folder from Mulder's car.
Yep, and then they took out Duane, and they took out.
Yeah, he took out Duane, poisoned him.
Someone went through Scully's office and took all her information. So it's just really cool how they're showing this whole everything's being covered up kind of thing. It's it's really neat because it's you're watching a show about the FBI being but they're also stuff's being hidden by the same people. I don't know how to put it.
Oh no, absolutely. The X-Files was incredible at their continuity because it feels like a procedural, and a lot of episodes are kind of self-contained. But Chris Carter, who is the creator and also the writer and sole director, at least, of the Duane Barry episode we watched, he's highly involved with this show throughout its entirety and still is.
Yeah.
And he was smart enough to make the continuity matter and to add just a little spices of mythos, because the seasons are incredibly long. Season 2 is 25 episodes in total. And he just sprinkles a little bit of mythos, so just plants seeds. Mm-hmm. You know, like Krycek in these 3 episodes is a seed that will like grow and bloom into one of the most nefarious characters in the world.
You know what's probably really clever about that is because this is a TV show, I think planting multiple seeds is a really great idea, because if one of them doesn't come to fruition, you can always rely on something else.
Exactly, or nip it in the bud, like, immediately.
Yeah. Like, the whole thing where it's like, he didn't show up to work today and his home telephone line was cut. And it's like, that could go one of 2 ways. Either he's gone rogue,
exactly, or
he was taken out. So that's really clever writing on their behalf.
Absolutely, and they figured, no, we'll have him back. And he comes back next in Anasazi. The final episode of this season doesn't have a single line. In fact, like, Chris Carter is hoping that you remember what he looks like from like 20 episodes before. Spoilers, I'm just going to say it. The next time you see him, he's putting a bullet in the back of Fox Mulder's father's head.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like, and like, he just hopes you remember this guy. He doesn't have a line of dialogue in Anasazi.
But beyond that, like, if I were asked, what do I think X-Files is, it would be like, these people who work, you know, in the shadows and try to cover things up while trying to protect people. But then you realize that, like, you know, Mulder, he's willing to tell these other cops that he genuinely believes in aliens.
Yeah.
And then by the end of that episode, there's practical reasons for this woman who was very skeptical to believe herself. And then you see that there's, like, this other part of the government that's, like, trying to hide everything still, but the main characters you're following aren't that part.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of shows that would have gone with this type of idea would have went with the traditional one where it's like, oh, they're keeping it all away. Like, so that way us as viewers were like, it's out there, but these people are covering up, and this is how they're covering up.
No, it just gives you barely enough. It gives you just enough to be, like, engrossed and, like, intrigued. It doesn't give you... That's what's frustrating and beautiful about the X-Files. Is that you can watch like 5 years of this. Exactly. You can watch 5 years of the show, The X-Files, and still have way more questions than answers. They give you so few answers over the course of the show, but it keeps you engrossed.
The only time they showed aliens in these episodes was in that guy's memories, which he's arguably delusional.
Yeah, you can argue were fabricated.
Like, it's hard to say if there's actually aliens, or like if he was just being manipulated by this government agency and there was just a helicopter and he took that as being a UFO.
But it has to make you ponder about the secret organization is like known, that the one that's covering it up is known eventually as the Syndicate, and don't think that they have that title now, led in part by the cigarette smoking man and the well manicured man and shit like that, which Krycek every so often is basically a wolf or like hunting dog of. They treat him incredibly poorly, and no one... If the X-Files is a show about trust, absolutely no one trusts Alex Krycek throughout the entire show, and they make that incredibly clear. But it leaves you to wonder the motives, right? So at the end of Sleepless, Krycek is basically debriefing the cigarette-smoking man about like how he's gotten close to Mulder, the advances of the case, and where the problem issues may be with completely silencing this kind of crusader. And Krycek's opinion on how to solve this isn't getting rid of Mulder. It's getting rid of Dana Scully. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that Krycek is like, no, we can control Mulder. We have to kill Dana Scully, though. Because I have like a weird theory on it. It's a homoerotic theory. I do think that Krycek is obsessed with Mulder in his own way, but that's evidenced by later episodes. Just based on this one episode, why do you think he thought Scully was a problem? So I'm trying to think of the scenes in which he was there with Scully and she was going over... Would he be powerless without Scully?
I mean, if it comes down to all this stuff actually being fabricated by what you called syndicate, right?
Yeah.
If all that stuff is actually fabricated, then it's easier to deal with Mulder, who believes that this could actually be paranormal.
Right, it's easier to deal with the noted nutcase.
As opposed to someone who's an active skeptic. And then there's another reason is because they left it vague enough to where if Mulder thinks that she's not dead, he's not going to stop looking for her.
Exactly. And I believe, too, the way that it framed Krycek in Sleepless, even before you knew he was a double agent, it was framed incredibly well. I mean, first of all, the cinematography of the X-Files is pretty noteworthy just in general, but just for like the actual visual language, whenever Krycek was in a scene with both Fox and Dana, he was almost out of focus. He was trying to get in the middle, but like he was just never allowed in. And I do believe that Dana Scully just didn't like him immediately. Not because she could tell he was slimy or swarmy, but like more the idea of like, this is my replacement kind of thing. I think it is like a homoerotic, weird kind of jealousy or emotional jealousy going on. And I think because Dana even says something catty when she's on the phone with Mulder of like, oh, I guess things are going well with your new partner. And then Fox even says like, yeah, well, it's nice to have someone who is more willing to believe you sometimes. So it's still like, it is playing into this kind of psychosexual dynamic that I'm saying, because I do think Krycek is a villain that operates psychosexually when it comes to his nemesis Mulder. So I don't think that theory is far off, though this episode doesn't give you a whole lot to go on there. But what did you think of the concept of Sleepless? Because Sleepless is about Tony Todd, famously, who plays a Candyman, who can control the collective consciousness and basically psychically make dreams realities that kill you because you believe that they're actually happening. And I thought it was a pretty cool concept for basically a throwaway episode that just is there to establish Krycek.
Well, as you know, but I don't think it's ever been brought up on the channel before. Well, I kind of touched up on it on my animation, I guess. But I love the idea of the subconscious, and dreams fall into the subconscious. They're honestly one of the ways most people actually choose to express any ideas revolving around the subconscious, because you know everyone has dreams and everyone recognizes what dreams are. So yeah, when they started bringing up all that fucking psychological like theories, like Jungian kind of
Mulder's his expositional scene, he definitely talked about Jungian psychology by living inside of the collective unconscious.
Yeah, we paused it and I was like, did you pick this episode specifically because you know I'd like it? And he was like, no, I actually kind of forgot what the plot was.
I forgot what the plot was to Sleepless. I picked these episodes specifically for Krycek. Yeah,
so it was just kind of a coincidence, I guess, because I definitely had fun, just brainstorming on different ideas, because, like, I've never gone anywhere with it, but I like to write from time to time, and one of my favorite subjects is the subconscious. So, yeah, it was definitely fun for me, that first episode.
A great little concept, and I would even charge the popular creepypasta, the Russian sleep experiment, which I'm not going to summarize here, but if you know what it is basically this tale. This tale in Sleepless is about Vietnam soldiers who were experimented on and made not to sleep, but that kind of opened up like extra psychic or like para powerful things, like for the paranormal, some new abilities and a lot more terrors too, because it would make you go completely insane. And that's basically what the Russian sleep experiment is, minus cannibalism. So
yeah.
And I think that's really cool. I think the X-Files is great to borrow from. I think a lot of people do it because there are so many great concepts in a lot of these kind of throwaway episodes. But I wouldn't call the Duane Barry episode a throwaway episode necessarily. I think that the plot's a bit more important to the overall mythos of the show because it ends with an important bit of mythology.
I also thought that they did Duane Barry very well because there's a lot of TV shows or movies or whatever where they'll have a character speaking in third person, but it seems like a lot of writers don't actually understand why someone might speak in third person, and it felt like the writer of X-File pretty much got it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this guy has gone through a lot of trauma, therefore he's speaking in third person to keep his sanity because it's the idea of disconnecting from yourself to some extent. Like, he understands that he is Duane Barry, but if he refers to himself as Duane Barry in the third person, then he can kind of trick himself into saying, these things didn't happen to me, they happened to Duane Barry.
Yeah, showrunner Chris Carter definitely expressed the depersonalization incredibly well with Duane Barry, and the actor did a phenomenal job as well because you really don't know. I mean, even if he was abducted, he's still acting incredibly dangerous. He's still a violent criminal, regardless of whether or not what he's saying actually happened.
They're really good at staying, like, it's like a trapeze act almost watching these shows or watching these episodes because it's like you're kind of like they're constantly teetering you back and forth between is he a psychopath, like, or not a psychopath, but is he psychotic?
Yeah.
Or is he actually traumatized by alien abduction?
I think sadly the answer is both, like quite easily.
And it could be easily both. It could be that he truly does have these mental issues and that could just be the reason as to why he was abducted because he was an easy target. If they abduct this man and then put him back into society, no one's going to believe him anyway, so who cares?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I even had to point out that the X-Files falls into like one of my favorite tropes about villains and their appearances, that they're the protagonist of your show will if he has hair that is parted, it will most commonly be parted to the right. And I guess with his right hand. And Krycek's hair is parted like with his left hand. And I think that that's like really cool. Because I do think there's something immediately unlikable or something that you don't trust about Krycek on the X-Files, and I think that it plays into our subconscious about right hand, left hand mysticism and like symbolism and shit like that. Like if someone has their hair parted to the left, we just don't trust them for some weird reason that we can't pinpoint. So I like that trope a lot, and this one did it pretty cool, especially since he is hiding something the entire episodes. And I remember. As a child, even I remember the Skyway, like the gondola sequence, like incredibly well. I always thought that was a really cool sequence with Mulder racing to get up there, and meanwhile Krycek's on the ground, like killing the operator, and then trying to just sabotage him. That was a really intense scene for me to remember, like from my childhood, and it's what I remember the most from these episodes. So they must have done that incredibly well for it to have stuck with me. Just a superficial aside I wanted to get out there.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wish there was like an in-between, because I felt like the one criticism I do have, and this could just be due to technology at the time, it didn't feel as heavy as a scene as it should have, or at least for what I'm used to. But at the same time, I wouldn't have want them to do it the way they do it in modern films, because they make it overly dramatic in modern films. But I felt it could have been a little bit more dramatic, because we had all the information. Like, the guy tells him, don't put the thing over 15 miles per hour, because then the cable's not going to be able to handle it. The whole time he's going 30.
Yeah.
He's going full speed. And then he only slows down to go past the towers, and then he immediately speeds it back up. And this whole time, the cables are squeaking, and it's like, you understand that it's a stressful situation, but I didn't personally feel stressed watching it.
Well, I was waiting for Krycek to, like, come out of his sheep's clothing and act like the fucking wolf that he is. So I think that's where, like, the real tension is,
and that was
waiting for him to expose himself.
Yeah, and then that was the great moment, because we were actually talking about the whole hairspray thing.
And we were like arguing over, like, wait, could he part his hair with his left hand like that?
And then he does it. Like,
and he does part it.
He, like, hits the guy, and then, like, he kind of straightens himself out and straightens out his hair, and it's just like...
With his left hand.
Yeah. And of course there'd be people who argue, well, of course he had his gun in his right hand, but no, there's stuff there.
Fascinatingly, another Krycek spoiler. Eventually he gets his left hand, or left arm amputated, and has to have a prosthetic left arm for, like, 4 years. Man. Yeah, I'm describing, I know, he sounds like he turns into, like, a supervillain, like an old-fashioned supervillain.
That's great.
But he really does, yeah, he has a prosthetic left arm, which is so weird, because then he can't part... That's when he kind of cuts his hair really short and doesn't part it anymore. I just realized that. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
There's something to this hair thing.
There really is when it comes to Krycek.
So, for all of you out there listening, if you part your hair to the left...
you're the villain of your life. You just don't know it.
You're the reason everything goes wrong.
And, like, Mulder's he looks like a porcupine, but it still is slightly hairsprayed to the right. Like, slightly. It has a tilt to the right.
Yeah, you can tell where his natural part is.
And you can tell most when they're in the car together and he, like, falls asleep while driving. It is so obvious that they're parted to opposite sides. These are conscious decisions. These aren't just, like, he just looked best with his hair parted to the left. No, this was a conscious Chris Carter characterization decision. But about the gondola scene or the Skyway scene, I agree it was a different pacing, but it holds up extremely well for 25 years old. That episode is. That episode came out in 94. Like, I think they did incredibly well.
I'm not
and the cinematography,
for
the most part, is like...
Oh, yeah, the cinematography throughout the show
stands up to today's kind of better cinematography.
Especially, like, when we were pointing out when he went to that stadium.
Yeah.
That was really well done. Oh, and my favorite scene, as far as cinematography goes, is when they went to the ward where that guy was supposed to be held. And they have the dolly going down the hallway.
Yeah, it's just like they went an extra mile, like, every time. Like, they didn't need to do half of the technical tricks that they did. They didn't need to do those at all, and most shows wouldn't. Look at Law & Order. Look at how that show is filmed. It's just very stationary, I'm just going to give you this visual information and move on. Seems like all the directors involved in the X-Files, including Chris Carter, just... if they saw a moment of creativity, they completely capitalized on it, and they went that extra mile because I think that they cared a lot. And for a 94 show, I mean, it's not like these shows were circulated on DVDs or Blu-rays. They made these shows to be aired one time.
Yeah, and I think during watching this, I've come up with my favorite way to criticize something, because I've never found a way to say it before, but the show has vision.
It does.
And I feel a lot of things lack vision, but I've never knew how to articulate that before.
Well, I think that X-Files is a perfect example of that. And I think its genius is that it maintains that vision and maintains that curiosity for, they've had 11 seasons and 2 feature films at the time of this recording. That's a cultural phenomenon. That challenges Star Trek level of output for a single show. I think it's phenomenal. Did you have a favorite episode out of these 3? Did you think one was done more engaging narratively than the other?
I'd say probably either episode 2 or 3. I kind of liked those episodes as
the Duane Barry continuation.
Yeah.
But you get why I showed you Sleepless, though, because I feel like that starts the Krycek arc, or else you wouldn't... Because if you watch Sleepless, you don't know that Krycek is a double agent. They don't reference it at all.
Yeah, I definitely did love that episode, but it's hard to pick between episode 2 and 3.
Those are
out of the 3 we watched, I'm saying. 5 and 6?
Yeah, that would be episodes 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Duane Barry and Ascension. Well, since those are continuations, we can almost look at them as the same. You can't watch one without the other.
I guess Ascension would be my favorite one. That's the one where they actually went to the mountain and all that. I guess that one's my favorite.
I did think they handled the hostage situation extremely well, and I love what you were talking about, that moment where Scully's like, "No, you don't understand. It's not the person Mulder thinks that he is." And they did it. It was written so well, and that was a Chris Carter solo script, and he directed that episode. And I just keep wanting to say that because you don't see that too much from showrunners, like actual people doing this shit. And Chris Carter is the most involved showrunner I've ever seen in my life. But the part of the episode or the script writing where he brings Duane Barry back from the window where he's going to get shot by the sniper, just to clarify, are you sure you haven't made any of this up? And then when he realizes, or at least assumes, like, oh no, okay, this guy's actually psychopathic, like, they're right. But okay, so go lock the door, Duane, basically sending him off to be like shot. Like, I thought that was like so well written. It was so interesting, and then it was a good amount of intensity too. But I love that Mulder is such a believer that he almost foiled the plans of his survival just to make sure that this person is psychopathic.
Yeah,
and then sent him to his doom too. Like pretty well, like I said, Aquarian or airy or like uninvolved. Like he suddenly thinks he's psychopathic, so he's just uninterested anymore. Go get shot in the stomach, please. Goodbye. I have no more use for you. Oh man, and God, yeah, these were just extremely good episodes. Do you have any closing thoughts, Craig?
I think that the show is actually really well written. There's plenty of shows that I like, but this one feels like it works on. It's like there's two streams of narrative going at all times, and it's really good.
It's one of the most incredible shows ever. And like pro tip out there to anybody curious, I just made a pretty substantial like Alex Krycek character analysis, and I watched every episode that Krycek was in, which might sound like a lot, but it's, like I said, it's 2 to 3 episodes per 8 seasons of television, so it really wasn't. But pro tip, he apparently is only in incredibly important episodes, and if you want to like get the cliff notes of the X-Files, if you just look up Alex Krycek appearances, you will know the entire story within, I don't know, 12 to 15 episodes as opposed to 300.
Yeah.
Like, you will get all the big nuggets just out there if you want the cliff notes, but you still want to experience the X-Files. That's a good way to do it. Or else you are in for quite a commitment.
But to be fair, if you're willing to make that commitment, from what I've just seen, like, it seems like it would be a good show.
It is a great show to actually just be a completionist about and watch literally every episode. I just know that a lot of people are intimidated by the length.
The way I usually watch TV shows is I pick a TV show that I want to watch, and I watch, like, maybe 2 episodes while I'm laying in bed, and then I fall asleep afterwards. I could definitely see myself, like, doing this every once in a while with X-Files.
Dude, and X-Files definitely gives you some good dreams. It gives you some good things to think about.
Probably give you some good nightmares, too.
Well, hopefully, man, or else Chris Carter's not doing his job. And also a deep distrust of the government and everything involved with it. All right, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. We will be covering more X-Files on the channel in the future. Thank you guys for watching.
Bye-bye.